tropical region within the Amazon. Suriname is named after the Suriname tribe, one of the indigenous peoples of the land. There are 715 species of birds and giant sea turtles that flock to sandy beaches like Galibi and Matapika to lay their eggs. There are many orchids and heliconia, or lobster claw flowers. The national flower is the fajololi, meaning passionate love. The biggest nature reserve is the Central Suriname Nature Reserve. Because of the remarkable land formations, rivers, vegetation, and animal wildlife, this nature reserve has been placed on UNESCO's list of heritage sites. The country has approximately 540,000 inhabitants and almost as many Surinamese or descendants living in diaspora. We have a multi-ethnic population consisting of indigenous peoples, African descendants, Creoles and Maroons, and also Asian descendants, Hindustani, Japanese and Chinese people, and European descendants. Suriname tongue was the language used among the slaves. Now, it is the language spoken among the different ethnic groups. The official language is Dutch, a remnant from the last colonizer of Suriname. The majority of the indigenous peoples and the Maroon community live in the vast forests of the interior. About 90% of the population of Suriname lives in the coastal areas. More than half live in the capital city of Paramaribo. Suriname was colonized by an influx of Europeans to the New World, particularly from Spain and Portugal, in search of the Gold Coast. Subsequently, the country was captured by the French, the English, the Zealanders, and the Netherlands for short periods of time. The English ruled Suriname from 1651 to 1667, but as a result of the war between the Netherlands and England, Suriname was exchanged for New Amsterdam, which we now know as New York City. Suriname remained a Dutch colony until its independence in 1975. In 1948, Suriname achieved self-government under the supervision and control of the Netherlands. On November 25, 1975, after much diplomatic negotiation, the Netherlands agreed to give Suriname full independence. A military coup d'etat in 1980 changed the political system. The president and ministers were selected by the military. Until the end of military government in 1987, the Constitution had been put aside. Now, based on the new Constitution, democratic elections have been restored and the head of the government is an executive president. Over 300,000 Africans were brought to Suriname and forced to work as slaves on the plantations. Many slaves ran away and started communities in the interior known as Maroon villages. They fought against the plantation owners and the colonial government. It was not until 1814 that the slave trade to Suriname was abolished. With the end of slavery, indentured laborers from the Dutch colonies like India and Indonesia were contracted to work on the plantations. Chinese and Portuguese from the island of Madeira were also brought to work in Suriname as indentured laborers. During World War I, the United States started mining for bauxite in Suriname. Bauxite was the raw material for aluminum, which was necessary in the aircraft industry. With the decline of bauxite mining and Suriname's political independence in 1975, the diversification of the economy has been placed at the forefront. Small-scale gold miners, exports of red or gray snapper and tuna fish, and the recovery of agriculture with the supply of regional markets with rice, fruit, vegetables, and cassava are the signs of a new economy. Two international gold mining companies very active in the country, but Surinamese and foreign miners such as the Brazilian fork knockers are illegally mining and damaging the environment. They use high-pressure hoses to dislodge sediment, loosen it, and mine gold dust, and sometimes gold nuggets from it. As a result, huge areas of forest have disappeared, making way for enormous craters and desert-like landscapes. The water in rivers and creeks has been polluted by the Waste collection, waste separation, recycling, composting, and reuse of materials improve the well-being of the community. Ultimately, it reduces greenhouse gas emissions from landfills, which will then lessen the contribution to global climate change by keeping the earth cooler. Education in Suriname is based on the Dutch educational system. Education is required for children from 7 to 12 years old, but there is no compulsory school attendance. In remote areas, education is offered in nucleus centers and boarding schools. A significant number of boys drop out of school. There is a need for adult education and second chance education for young people who drop out. Suriname has 6 hospitals, 5 of which are in Paramaribo, and various healthcare centers in the districts and in the interior. Different churches in Suriname have played an important role, sending their medical missions to attend people affected by malaria, HIV, and AIDS, as well as other diseases with high occurrences in the interior. The Bureau for Public Health Care keeps the population informed to combat the mosquitoes and to prevent dengue, chikungunya, and Zika. Freedom of religion is laid down in the Constitution. Religions in Suriname, in order of prominence, are Christianity, which accounts for about 48%, Hinduism, Islam, traditional religions, Jainism, the Jewish faith, and other religions. In Paramaribo, Mosque Keizersstraat, an original wooden building from 1932, stands next to the synagogue Neve Shalom, inaugurated in 1723. The Cathedral Basilica of Saints Peter and Paul is the highest wooden structure in South America. Dr. Sophie Redmond was the first female doctor in the country. She dedicated her life to accessible basic sanitation and nutrition education. Women's suffrage was only granted fully in 1948. However, in 1938, Grace Schneiders Howard, the first female member of Parliament, was elected. In the 2015 elections, 15 female members of Parliament were elected, and for the 3rd time, a woman was elected the Parliament chairperson. The interests of the child are protected both in the Surinamese Constitution and by national laws. Yet, there are still hidden forms of violation of their rights. It is common to see children selling fruit in the streets and in front of shops in town. Of greater concern, children also seem to be working in the gold mine of the interior. Each ethnic group adds its own language and traditions to the cultural riches of the native inhabitants of Suriname. The country is blessed with a wide variety of art, literature, music, clothing, dance, and drama. Ecumenical collaboration was established in Suriname in November 1942 under the Committee of Christian Churches. The Women's World Day of Prayer started in 1953. World Day of Prayer services were initially held only in the Grote Staatskerk, Moravian Mother Church, and the Roman Catholic Cathedral. In Suriname, our World Day of Prayer offering has been used locally for missionary work of the churches, for a community center, for communities in the interior, and has also been sent to the writer country. Since 1953, every year on the first Friday in March, men and women congregate from the various districts in our nation to pray for a specific country. Services are also held in homes for the elderly and in prison. Children's services are held on the Sunday following the adult service. In total, there are 20 locations for adult services and 5 for children's services. In November 2014, a Strengthening National Committee workshop was held to start the writing process with the support of World Day of Prayer International Committee. The focus of the workshop was to understand the theme according to the environmental context of Suriname. The preparatory workshop for a writer country, held on April 2015, with around 35 women and young women, provided writing training and an opportunity to organize the writer working groups. We thank the Lord for the dedication of these women in writing the materials for the 2018 program, which they did with the assistance of experts and female pastors. Our World Day of Prayer artist, Alice Palmstra Almont, was born on January 20th, 1947, in a very special place in Suriname. She is a member of the Hervormde Gemeente, or Dutch Reformed Church. At an environment exhibition, she was asked to design the cover for the World Day of Prayer program. Of her painting, The Divine Gift, Alice says, "We live in a beautiful country that we received from our Creator. Here we symbolically see the hands that receive the divine gift and pass it on to the next generations. What a precious gift. Let us keep it as beautiful as we received it."
Good afternoon. I would like to welcome everyone to this World Day of Prayer with the theme, All God's Creation is Very Good, which this year was prepared by the people of Suriname. And you can read more about Suriname in your program, and I just had a lesson on Suriname. Some housekeeping things that you should know. Number one, the washrooms are located through the doors on your left, my right, and the women's is immediately on your right, and the men's is just around the corner to your left. We invite you to write down a personal commitment to care for God's creation on the fish or on the sun that you were given. The cards will be collected with the offering. Speaking of offering, the yellow envelopes may be used for those who would like to get a tax receipt for donations over $20. We need your name and address in order to send you, for them to send you. In your program, you will notice there are some refrains in English and Suriname, which is their native language. We will only say the English version. We don't want to embarrass the Suriname people or ourselves by murdering their language. And please follow along in the program and join in for the English refrains. You are all invited for refreshments and fellowships at the end of the service, which will be served in the Golden Jubilee Room, which can best be accessed through the door at the front of the sanctuary. Lastly, I would like to thank all of you for coming, especially all the participants from the community churches, the choir, the people who brought the refreshments, Tina, our AV person, all my helpers, and Andy, our organist. Thank you.
We thank God for the beautiful country of Suriname, a country with incredible flora and fauna, where people from different ethnicities may live in peace with each other.
We thank God for the practice our faith and for the opportunity to worship side by side, which is represented by the Mosque Kaiserstraat, located adjacent to the synagogue Neva Shalom in Paramaribo, the capital of Suriname.
All God's creatures is very good. God's creation is very good.
We, the women of Suriname World Day of Prayer, invite you to this celebration. We began organizing the service as an ecumenical group in 1953. Some of our leaders were wives of the pastors of the Reformed Church. The first service was held in the Protestantkerk in Moravian Town Church. We give thanks to the witness of the founding sisters.
Today, we come with our gifts representing the country of Suriname, the cultural and ethnic diversity of its people, and the nature that God put in our hands to care for. God's creation is very good.
Instead of our first song, we're going to listen to some music from Suriname.
Lord, we invite you into our midst. Bless all who are praying with us in every corner of this world.
We will now introduce the women from Suriname.
I am Anima. I study and work in care therapy. I belong to the district of Strathroy, the capital of study. My ancestors are the first inhabitants of Suriname, and we are proud to live in harmony with our natural habitat. During vacations, I return to my village. My mothers make oil from the poppy seeds. With the money from the sale, they buy school supplies for us. We also have family in Galabi, district of Maritime. We're there committed to protecting the sea turtles. Our lifestyle is based on caring for and preserving nature. She provides us with copper trees, gold, bauxite, and beautiful sea turtles.
God, we thank and praise you.
I am Mayenga. I'm also from Strathroy. My ancestors are enslaved Africans who ran away to the interior for freedom in communities away from the plantations. We are called Maroons and still live together in our settlements. Our ancestors have preserved many traditions from West Africa. We live in a tropical rainforest and mountains that provide us with food, medicinal plants, and natural beauty. We enjoy bathing and fishing in the rivers. Sipalini, Maritime, and Rupungo are districts where a large part of nature is still in its original condition. The tropical rainforest represents 94% of our country, and it functions as the lungs of the world.
God, we thank and praise you.
I am Mei Lin, the descendants of Chinese immigrants. I live in this district of Aroni. When my ancestors arrived in Suriname, they were placed on the plantations and coast to work in agriculture. Later on, they moved to retail business like small grocery stores or restaurants. Aroni is well known for its seashells, coconut trees, flowers, birds, and bees that produce a rich honey. Coconut oil is made from the nuts of the coconut trees. It is very healthy.
God, we thank and praise you.
I am Carolina, and I live in La Prosperite, which was formerly a wood plantation in the district of Pera. I am considered Creole. My father was European, and my mother was of African descent. My ancestors bought wood plantations from a French owner in Suriname. I am a single mother of 5 children. By planting and processing cassava, I can provide for my children. I make plain cassava bread or filled with pineapple and coconut. I sell it at the J.A. Pengel International Airport. My sister cultivates ginger, pineapple, sweet potato, cassava, dasheen, and agos. In Para, we are grateful for the large freshwater resources and natural creeks, but we are concerned about the recent mining of bauxite and gold.
God, we thank and praise you. God,
me willing. I am one of the descendants of the farmers who came from the Netherlands to work in Suriname. We are known as Boers. Many of us did not survive the tropical diseases. We settled in Paramaribo in the neighborhood of Kawata, where some of us still work in agriculture and with cattle breeders, but have also other professions. My husband and I have a small farm with pigs, cows, and chickens. Our children help us to grow organic vegetables.
God, we thank and praise you.
I am Shanty. I live in the district of Nickerie. After the abolition of slavery, workers from the Dutch colonies were hired as indentured laborers. At first, they could only work at the place that hired them, and then they could go back to their country of origin or find another job in Suriname. That is how my ancestors came from India. I work and have my own family here. My children study in Nickerie, but will have to move to Paramaribo for higher education and university. My parents are rice farmers, and my husband works for a banana company. I also have family in the district of Saramacca who have found employment with the oil mining company. Nickerie borders Guyana, and many Guyanese cross to Suriname to work in Nickerie.
God, we thank and praise you.
I am Kartini. I still live with my family in the district of Kamui, where my ancestors were settled after they arrived from Indonesia as indentured laborers. Today, my siblings live all over Suriname. The district used to have coffee, cotton, cocoa, tobacco, indigo, and sugar cane plantations. I practice horticulture, and my husband works as a fisherman. Recently, my eldest daughter was able to go to senior secondary school close to home.
God, we thank and praise you for all creation.
We light the candle to remind us of God's presence. Let us listen to the words of God from Genesis 1, verse 1 to 31.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the water. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. And God said, "Let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so. God called the expanse sky. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear," and it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds," and it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kind, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years. And let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning the fourth day. And God said, Let the water teem living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky. So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living and moving thing with which the water teems according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to his kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water and the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creatures that move along the ground, and wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the live and wild animals according to their kind, and livestock according to their kind, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and the birds over the air, over the livestock, over the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living thing, every creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit within it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the creatures and birds of the air, and all the creatures that move on the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I give it every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day.
God creates is always good. In the first 5 days, all that is needed is made ready until humankind is created. We are created in God's image. We are worthy just because God loves us. But the Creator holds us accountable for how we care for the environment and all the beings on earth. We can't be careless or wasteful. It is time to seriously think about what we have done to God's creation. What is our contribution to help restore it all? Am I aware that I'm part of God's perfect creation?
I'd now like to ask our speaker today, Girish Sankar from the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Girish. When I introduce my name, I usually like to spell my name too. My name is spelled Girish. And so my name, not being very common in this part of the world, people tend to not only say my name, but also know how to spell my name. But I've been getting all different versions of it. The one that I got recently was Garnish. Not only do I have a color, I also have a flavor. Recently in my email, I got, "Hi Girlish," and I just don't know how to respond to that. I'm here to talk about water. Water has played a very, very important part of my life, and it continues to be a significant part. I'm going to introduce a little bit of Suriname. We've already talked about it, seen it. And I'm going to talk a little bit of my role with the Conservation Authority. I'm going to somehow tie in my experiences from back home. I am from India, which is also a developing nation. Suriname is a small country on the northeastern coast of South America with a population of more than 500,000. About 90% of the population lives in Paramaribo. It's the capital of Suriname. Drinking water is not an issue in most of the city. But in rural communities of Suriname, there are significant drinking water issues. Rainwater harvesting has become really popular and famous. This is an approach where the rain falls and you're trying to hold it in a tank and you use it throughout the year. Though tap water is available in cities, it is extremely contaminated. And from a North American perspective, we're not strictly allowed, and there's advisories recommending us not to use drinking water from the taps. Certain communities rely on groundwater sources for water. And due to extensive mining, as we saw today in the presentation, operations of gold, there is significant mercury contamination. In other words, there's 40% of the fish species that are found in Suriname is contaminated with mercury, which is beyond the consumption. Turbidity is also a significant issue in the water and has significant health effects on communities that rely on that source of drinking water. Climate change, depending on how you believe it or not, is also adding another dimension to the already existing problem. When it comes to wastewater, it's the sanitary indirectly or directly drains into the river, again contaminating and poisoning the water source. The occurrence of flooding and inundation in the city also creates numerous health problems. Such problems are very common in developing nations, and I come from one of them. I was born and raised in the city of beaches. It is a city of beaches. It has a significant coastline, but people usually stay away from the beaches because it is not clean and it's very close to filthy. Moving ahead, I'm going to try to strike a balance between some of the programs that we have at the Conservation Authority and how people in developing nations deal with some of those problems or some of those issues. So one of the problems that the Conservation Authority deals with is flood control. How to prevent flood control. As we saw last week, there was lots of water, lots of snowmelt, and we were in a flood situation. The McHugh Dam, that is south of, that is north of Wallaceburg, were operated for the 7th time in history. We have about 12 stream gauges, and being at the office, we can know what the water level is at different parts of the watershed, which would help us in issuing flood communications, flood messaging. We also monitor the snow, the ice thickness, so we can issue flood communications to ensure that people in the community are safe and can stay away from the water courses. Going back to my experience growing up in India, there was minimal to no flood control. Improper drainage was something that was very normal. Foot-deep water whenever it rains was also very normal. Sewers overflow, that was very normal, and it would smell. It would smell, and you know what I'm talking about here. Several houses will get flooded, and there will be no assistance or no help from the government. It was fun to walk on flooded waters. In a flooding in 2015, about 40 inches of rain fell over 2 days. Airports were closed. State of emergency was declared for the city. Interestingly, at home, the soil became very, very fertile because of all the sewers and inundation. And the mango tree at my house, that didn't blossom for 30 years, bore fruit for the first time. At the Conservation Authority, we deal with shoreline erosion, making sure people are safe, away from the threats of natural hazards, away from the shoreline. My experience is, have you heard of infinity pool? Where you have a pool, and you open that nice sunroom or something, it will look like the infinity pool. It's like the whole of the Atlantic Ocean is yours. It's very common back home. It's just that we don't have an infinity pool. You open the door and all you see is the ocean. That is how close you are to the ocean. Fishermen lead their livelihood extremely close to the coastal areas. And if you may recall, in 2004, there was a tsunami that took away about 8,000 lives. The one that is close to me is drinking water. And that program at the Conservation Authority, we, as you all know about the Walkerton tragedy, we at the Conservation Authority make sure that rather than truly relying on the treatment plant to treat the water and give you distributed water, we want to make sure that the source, which in our case would be Lake Huron, because that's where we get the water from, is protected, is safe for drinking water consumption. Going back, we had a well in our home, 6-foot diameter, probably about 20 feet deep. And during summers, it will be completely dry. And you can see the groundwater recharge trickling, drop by drop. And you just wish that there would be more. Along with that, there will be minor disputes and fights in the neighborhood for water. There was minimal assistance from the government. Some communities will have wells that are 1 foot diameter. Initially, they'll start digging at 50 feet. They'll find a little bit of water. No water for the next year. You dig it deeper, 100 feet. You dig it deeper, deeper and deeper and deeper. 300 feet, and you don't find water. You leave it open, and there are significant casualties. Pets being trapped into those wells, or even children that get trapped into those small wells. Drought is something that is also very close to me. And one of the programs that we have at the Conservation Authority is to monitor the low water conditions when we have less precipitation, when we see the stream flows are drying out. We ensure that we let the communities know, and there's a voluntary reduction of 10%, 20% or 30%, making sure that people are consuming less water and leaving more water in the rivers and the lakes. Growing up, water shortages was an everyday thing. We will not have water in the house. We will have water delivered through the trucks once a week. You had to walk about half a kilometer with a few buckets. Think about a 9-year-old with a family walking. There were limits as to the number of water buckets you can bring back. Maybe 10 buckets. That was your quota for the week. There was a quota for the house too. Every bath was probably about half a bucket. Anything more, your mom's watching. Occasionally, we used to get water from the hand pump. We will work like ants, one person at a time, and we will get it only for 1 hour in that week. We would try to fill those buckets, running around. If those buckets were full, we will climb 3 stories and try to fill the overhead tank. So when we open the water, we could see, when we open the tap, we could see water, and we just don't see or feel or hear the sound of air. In this part of the world, we open the tap, we not only get hot water, the other tap has cold water as well. We are very fortunate where we are. I go back and ask myself, why did this happen? The kings that ruled the country in the 16th century had the foresight to dig ponds, to replenish the groundwater, and to conserve water, knowing that this could be an issue for generations to come. But nothing has changed. It did happen. Developing countries suffer and are still suffering with water issues. Over 12,000 farmers lose their lives every year due to water-related issues in that country alone. I hope that the generations to come, we do not have to go through these water issues in this part of the world. Water is the elixir of life. Every citizen, I believe, has a twin responsibility. 1, to economically use water. 2, saving water resources for sustainability. I am thankful to God for providing me the opportunity to experience the luxury of water in Canada. I invite you all to come to the Conservation Authority to learn about some of our programs. I would love to discuss with you in detail. Thank you for having me.
As humans, we make promises that we do not keep. But this does not mean that we should just sit and wait. God is trustworthy. And the Spirit of God prays with and for us. Let's not live back, but do our utmost to preserve the earth for those who come after us. Let us make others aware that we are all responsible to take care of the environment. May our Creator give us wisdom, strength, and courage to carry on God's call for climate justice.
Always
Let us, with the whole world, confess our negligence in caring for God's creation. Lord, it seems that we are unable to understand how the negligence in our daily lives affects the whole of creation. Help us to see that the waste discarded on the streets may contribute to clogging drains, which will cause flooding in the rainy season. Lord, we ask you to forgive us.
Creator God, we affirm that all your creation is very good, but we have to confess our guilt in living with your creation without concern for caring. We recognize that development without sustainability or consumption without preservation endangers the future of the earth for the next generations.
Lord, we ask you to forgive us.
We confess that we have not done enough to advocate for your creation with our governments. Irresponsible actions have been inflicted on the earth. We are disturbed by the contamination of our rivers with mercury out of greed for gold, and the deforestation of our forests for bauxite mining. We suffer with the people and animals uprooted from their habitat because of the destruction of the environment in which they live. Lord, we ask you to forgive us.
We confess that we have not paid enough attention to the needs of our neighbors as Jesus told us to do. Let's have a moment of silence for personal prayer.
Let us pray. Lord God, creator of the world, God of all humanity, and Father of Jesus Christ, we are here in your presence to ask for forgiveness for what we have done to bring harm and destruction to your creation. Forgive us for our neglect of creation and the intolerance that we have had towards each other. We're sorry for what we have done and would like to commit ourselves to being better stewards of your creation and caretakers of our neighbors, with Jesus Christ as our example. Amen.
I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from you can do nothing.
Your offering supports the World Day of Prayer and provides grants for projects to benefit women touched by injustice. A list of World Day of Prayer 2017 project grants is printed at the back of this booklet. Please make your check out to WICC. Income tax receipts will be provided for donations of $20 or more. If you prefer to give online, please use the donate button at www.wicc.org.
Members from the Anglican Church will take up the collection. They will be next year's hosts for this program. And please, if you made a commitment on the back of your sons and your fishes, would you put them in the collection plate as well?
increase the number of amount of seed every month get. Goats from the revolving goat budget run by change reward. A single goat can produce up to 16 cups of protein-rich milk a day, providing day-to-day sustenance. The milk can also be sold as a source of income. These women have been prepared for this labor. They've studied animal care, learned from a local veterinarian. They've saved and contributed to a fund for medicine. They've learned carpentry skills as they build corrals. These goats, purchased by your donations during the World Day of Prayer, have given new life to the single mothers in the city.
Let us, with all churches in the whole world, pray for perseverance to be good stewards of God's creation.
Much has changed, and in some places nature is not what it used to be. We forget that we are only borrowing theirs. God, guide us again on your creation responsibility. Change our mind and behavior so we can continue to recycle, reuse, and reduce waste. Save the green sea turtles from the ones who harvest their eggs, causing their endangerment. Protect the peoples who depend on the forest to live, so that their resources are not depleted by the logging industry. We bring these prayer petitions to you, O God.
Lord God, listen to our prayer.
Dear God of creation, we pray for the people living in communities in the interior who fish and live off the river's bounty and now find themselves in the land where gold mining has not been environmentally friendly and has polluted the water. Give us courage to advocate for legislation that brings a stop to the irresponsible illegal
exposes the river and the people from poison. The rivers are clean for the future of God's people. We bring these prayers, petitions to you, O God.
Lord God, listen to our prayers.
We remember those living by the coastal areas who are threatened by land loss as the water levels rise and fewer mangrove trees are there to deter the erosion of the young coastal plain. We appeal for the ones who do not have access to drinking water. We call our leaders to make resources available for sustainable access to safe drinking water for everyone. We bring these prayer petitions to you, O God.
Lord God, listen to our prayer.
We bring the single mothers and their children to your attention, O God. Assist them with strength to care for their family. Look after the youth and children, that wherever they live, they receive a quality education that will prepare them for life. Help us to have resources to provide a friendly home for the ones who have to leave their family behind to pursue an education. Teach us to show love to the young people, teen mothers, and to everyone in need. We bring these prayer petitions to you, O God.
Lord God, listen to our prayers.
God, who placed us in the garden to give us every plant and tree, so that we may have food, give us wisdom to farm and to protect the crops from floods, drought, and new chemicals. We also pray for safe cities so everyone can be secure in the streets, be sheltered, and have food on their tables. We bring these prayer petitions to you, O God.
Lord God, listen to our prayer.
God of compassion, there is so much suffering in our world and in us. Sometimes it feels unbearable to carry the burden. Hold us in your love, and the ones who are walking in darkness, despair, depression, and on the verge of ending their lives. Teach us to nurture their well-being. Inspire us to acquire knowledge and advocate for compassionate mental health treatment and services. We bring these prayer petitions to you, O God.
Lord God, listen to our prayer.
We pray for all who have to migrate to have a safe life with their families. We pray that we welcome each other as humankind created in God's image. Help us to bring to an end domestic violence and sexual abuse of children. We pray for more attention to be given to people with disabilities. Heal the ones suffering with drug and alcohol addiction. We bring these prayer petitions to you, O God.
Lord God, listen to our prayer.
Lord, you have created us in your image and to your likeness, and you know us with all our shortcomings. We ask you to accept our prayers and give us insight and wisdom to care for your creation.
We commit to take care of creation by raising awareness about recycling and the selling of gold at a fair trade value, by implementing green gardening practices, and by working towards access to safe drinking water for all.
I now take this opportunity just to share some thoughts coming from this congregation this afternoon. One said, I need to plant a new garden. Make sure that garbage is not contaminating ditches. Don't throw any papers in the way to blow out. Recycle better. Reuse more. Carpool. And the last one is plant seeds.
We are committed to find in our daily lives concrete ways to express our care and to have our government, communities, churches, and families accountable to protect the earth for future generations.
Let us sing together the Lord's Prayer.
Please let us rise. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you